I present to you live footage of the first 24 hours of Artfight. Is it not very riveting footage? Artfight was kind of interesting for me this year. I only made 4 attacks. I'm both very proud of what I made and very disappointed in myself. I'm disappointed because I only made 4 attacks. In the past, I've usually at least made 10, and this year I went way under that. But also, I'm incredibly proud of myself. I really enjoy and am happy with each and every piece that I created this year. One of the attacks that I created was an animation meme, something I have not made in a very long time. I'm not really the greatest animator in my eyes, despite having spent a lot of time studying animation, so making that was very much a feat for me. Was not something I was 100% certain I would be able to do, and the fact that I did it is something I'm deeply proud of. This attack alone took 2 weeks for me to create, and I feel like when I frame it that way, I should not be disappointed in myself for only having made 4 attacks this year, but for some reason I always feel like I could have done better, that I didn't do good enough. It's always like a bit of a self-doubt moment when you're on Artfight and you notice that a lot of your peers are capable of putting out attacks multiple times a day. And you're like, how did they do that? How do they make so many? How do they draw so quickly? And what's wrong with me where I can't do that? But I know I shouldn't compare, and thinking that way is really not what Artfight's about, nor is it healthy. And while this feeling of inadequacy is incredibly all-consuming sometimes, I feel it's something I have to cut out of my brain, because the truth is, I know if I had heard someone else, like one of my friends who also do Artfight, feeling or expressing these same thoughts, I would be telling them how Artfight's just a game and they shouldn't beat themselves up over only being able to make 4 attacks. I know logically there are many reasons why I was not capable of making that many attacks this year that have nothing to do with me and my ability to create art, and more to do with just it being the summer and very busy. And yet, even though I know all of this logically, I struggle to give myself that same grace. Heck, actually, I shouldn't even need to remind myself that it was summer and I was busy, because ultimately, Artfight is just a game. And even if I could have only made 1 attack, I shouldn't be beating myself up over it. So instead, I'm gonna try to reframe it. I made 4 attacks that I am incredibly proud of. They were all very challenging and kind of outside of my comfort zone. I was trying my best to be experimental this year and do stuff that I typically wouldn't do, but also met a level of quality that I would be happy with giving to another person. And ultimately, I feel I did that this year. I'm very proud of everything that I made, and I hope anyone watching this enjoys seeing them. For my first Artfight attack of the year, I made a drawing for the user Momentix of their OC Hugo. I had a really, really fun time with this drawing. First, I found the pose and the environment I wanted to put the character in to be very enjoyable to do. I was going for something kind of cutesy. I also wanted to go for something that was simple but serenic. I went with a cloudy sky and a rainbow in the background, and I feel like it gave the piece a nice bit of character to it. It wasn't too detailed, but also I feel like it had a nice environment to it and wasn't just like a blank background. For the past long while, I've very much struggled with creating any kind of background. I would essentially do like a gradient or maybe a little bit of a pattern, but I've been trying to expand my ability of drawing scenes and take on the challenge of actually like putting the characters I'm creating in an environment. Even if it's a simple environment, I just want there to be more than just, I don't know, a gradient or a pattern. Something that actually feels like they're in a real location and interacting with their environment a little bit. The character itself I also found to be a very enjoyable challenge. The character was intended to have this light blue iridescent hair, and I found drawing her hair was very relaxing but also challenging. I found that this character had a bunch of tiny little details in the coloring of her hair, and it was challenging because I'm not used to drawing hair with that much detail in it. Usually, whenever I color hair, I'll be honest, I'll pick a flat color, maybe a gradient. I'll have a lot of the detail in the line art, but the coloring itself, I sometimes skip over. But this character had a lot of detail in the coloring of the hair that I felt couldn't just be defined with one singular color or gradient. And as I put down each and every little detail that I saw in the reference, I found that the overall look of the hair just got more and more rich, and it was very fun to draw and see come together. Unrelated to the drawing itself, I think now is a great time to talk about my struggle with picking which team to join this year. Typically, this decision comes very easily to me. I know pretty quickly, right off the bat, which team I want to join and why, and I'm very drawn to one over the other. But this year was different. I think partly because Artfight now had 3 teams versus 2. And among the 2 options, I was very stuck between Team Tragedy and Team Mystery. I really enjoyed both aesthetics, and I could have created an argument to want to join either or. I know I really enjoy Team Mystery's aesthetics specifically. I enjoy the mystery genre vibe. I think I enjoy mystery stories over tragedies. However, I ended up picking Team Tragedy over Team Mystery despite liking the mystery theme more, specifically because I like Team Tragedy's color more. Blue is my favorite color, I'm sure. Shocker to no one. Blue is literally in my username. And while I did enjoy Mystery's theme, I wanted the blue username color and the blue Team Tragedy theming around each attack that I made. I don't know if I really explained that the greatest, but essentially there's a new feature in Artfight this year where every single attack you made, there was like this little border around the thumbnail of the attack that would have the symbol for whatever team you joined or were a part of. It was a small little detail, but personally I really liked it. I feel like it added a little bit of character to everyone's profiles this year. And I definitely feel the addition of a 3rd team was hyping me up for this year's fight. For my second attack, I made a lineless headshot of the character Kiana, who is owned by the user Extinction Nye. This was by far the most challenging drawing for me for this year's Artfight, even more so than the animation meme I would end up making. This drawing was a struggle for me. Primarily, the thing I was struggling with is the lack of a line art I decided to go with. I wanted to try to do a lineless art style, and my art style primarily focuses on very heavy line art, and I found without that very intense line art style that I usually have, making a drawing without it was very difficult. I view art as like a problem-solving challenge. Each drawing you make, each decision you make, you're asking a question of how do I get nothing to look like something? How do I take a blank paper and make it look like an image? And the art style you develop is just a response to how you went about answering those questions. And for me, I went by answering it with very, very, very heavy, detailed line art, of strong focus on line art. So removing that completely from the picture, it's like now all of a sudden I gotta figure out an alternative way to go about doing literally everything, because as I was going about this drawing, there was nothing that I could do the usual way I would go about doing it. I had to find an alternative solution to most every single struggling, challenging detail while making this drawing. And this was probably a very big trust the process drawing, because while I was working on this, I did not think it was going to come out looking good. I was honestly thinking throughout this drawing that maybe I should start over and create a new drawing, because I felt like this was coming out not the greatest, and I really wanted to avoid handing out art that was not to my standards. I had 1 year on Artfight where I had gotten like a lot of attacks. I was receiving a bunch of attacks, which I was very appreciative of. But because I was receiving so many attacks, I was trying to revenge everything, and I found that led to me rushing and greatly lowering the quality of my overall art in order to try and revenge as many of these attacks as I possibly could. Despite the fact that I managed to revenge almost every attack, I only missed 2 of the attacks. Despite that, I found myself really not liking anything that I made that year. I was not proud of my work from that year. I felt everything felt rushed. I felt everything looked like I kind of threw it together, and I was just not happy with it. So after that year, I felt it was very important for me to make sure that what I make is good, to put it lightly. And I know good is subjective, but I mean, I want to make sure that anything that I put out during Artfight is something that I can stand behind and will be proud of. Even if it might not be, like, technically the best piece, or if it's obviously a very experimental piece, I want to make sure that there is something about it that at least I personally can be proud of. I don't want to be handing out art that I personally am not happy with. And this drawing was just a drawing that I was wrestling to reach that level of quality with. Because, like, there were certain aspects of this drawing that I was very happy with, like the flowers. I thought the flowers looked very nice. But then the other aspects of the drawing, like her hair, that were frustrating me, because I know in the reference image, her hair is much lighter than it is in my drawing. I felt my drawing was taking on almost this dirty blonde look, while the reference image, it was just pure jet light. And I was like trying to figure out how to make the hair look like that, because the reason why my hair got darker was because I was trying to find a way to add in some texture and some line art back into the drawing in a way that I felt worked with this lineless art style I was trying to use. And then later on, I started to think how I kind of even wasn't using a lineless art style anymore, because my solution to a lot of issues at the end of this drawing process was to add line art back into the drawing. And yeah, this drawing was just very difficult for me. At the end, I ended up just walking away from it for a little bit, and I was about ready to give up. I was really unhappy with it. And then I asked a friend her thoughts on the drawing, and she gave me a few pointers, and I found that after walking away from it for a bit and adding in the details that someone who hadn't been staring at this drawing for hours gave to me, I felt the drawing start to look much better. Have this be a reminder that if you're working on a drawing and you're really struggling with it, sometimes the best move is to just walk away for a little bit and stop looking at it, because the more you look at it, the more you start to see it wrong due to the effects of looking at it for so long. Regardless, however, despite everything, I felt after I got those final details in, I ended up actually really liking this piece. Might be a bit different than my usual stuff, but it was a challenging piece that I am happy with how it turned out. And for my final art fight attack, I created a drawing of the characters Patot and Red, who are owned by the user Crim Reaper. Among all the drawings that I made this year, this was by far the easiest for me. This is the one that came on the most natural. I knew what I wanted to create, and I felt like it was not putting up any resistance when I was trying to make it. This was by far the most straightforward drawing that I created this year. The one part of it that was a bit of a struggle was learning how to draw the horse's body. I know that horses are very different anatomically to other animals like cats and wolves, which I feel like are more closer to the type of body shape I will draw. So I had to be aware of how the horse looks when drawing it, because I knew if I did that wrong, it'd probably come out looking kind of weird. Which, to be fair, I'm not 100% sure if I successfully didn't accidentally draw a cat or a wolf-shaped body onto a horse, but I think the drawing came out looking good regardless, so I'm not going to care. But anyway, that's about all the thoughts I have on the drawing itself. Once again, this was a very simple, straightforward drawing. I had a great time making it, but this was not like the other two where there were brutal challenges in it that I had to overcome. This was a very chillaxed, laid-back drawing for me. Which honestly I'm deeply appreciative of, because the next attack that I would create is the animation meme, which I don't have any footage of its creation, but that was probably not just the hardest attack I made this year, but probably during my existence on Artfight in general. That attack was a struggle. I am incredibly proud of how it came out, and if anyone wants to watch it, I will link it right here. But yeah, that was the hardest attack that I've ever made during Artfight. It had a lot of things I had to overcome, and I hadn't animated anything in a very long time, so that attack was quite challenging. At the time of recording this, Artfight recently released who won this year's fight, and congrats to Team Comedy. I'll be honest, I think it was kind of cool that Comedy won this year, because I feel like historically, with Artfight, what I like to call the edgelord team is typically the one who will win the fight, which, thinking about it some more, that's not entirely true, because I remember during Wither and Bloom, Team Bloom won. So that's not becoming a trend as much as it used to be, but I do find it fun when the lighthearted themed team ends up winning the challenge, because for a time it felt like the only team that would win these things was the edgelord team. I remember a lot of the users on Team Comedy who I were following or just saw pop up on my feed had some very cool pictures they were creating, so they definitely deserved it, and congrats to anyone who was on Team Comedy. And any of my fellow Team Tragedy peeps, we'll get them next time.